oh man. The King Gooner himself having to battle a semi-serious video about fan service. My opinion on fan service has actually been evolving over the past couple months. So I'm actually curious to see what this guy says.
Okay, now, I know you're looking at the title and thumbnail and thinking to yourself... Okay, now, I know you're looking at the title and thumbnail and thinking to yourself, Sinal, why have you reduced yourself to the goon mines?
First of all, it's not reduced. It's enhanced yourself to the goon mines.
To be a channel of integrity is far from the right word, but something. So why are we talking about fan service? Well, here's the thing. I have seen, for lack of a better word, wars over fan service. Yes, I know this sounds stupid, but hear me out. I feel as though within recent times I've heard so many people talk about X game doesn't have fan service, therefore it's bad, or Y game has it, therefore it's amazing.
True.
Some examples: Silent Hill remake, bashed for this character not being really hot. Then there's Stellar Blade.
Okay, so for Silent Hill, this is a very prime misunderstanding. We're not upset due to the fact that the character isn't hot. The problem is that this is what was attempted to be seen as a realistic woman acting as if beautiful people don't exist in a form to appease the woke, which I fucking hate. For some reason, the woke players want to think that everybody's fucking gay and everybody's fucking ugly. And if your game has fucking beautiful women, you're obliterating societal norms, you're doing a damage to female mental health and will never recover as they all jerk off to Calcharo's abs and Wuthering Waves, to Leon's abs and Resident Evil 2. It's like, bro, how come we can't just have hot people be hot and leave it at that? It's really not that big of a deal. I don't play video games to experience reality, a more depressing reality than what I live in. I play video games to escape. I expect characters to be hot as fuck, and no, I don't expect it to be the status quo. And I feel like more people need to adopt that mindset.
Bashed for this character not being really hot. Then there's Stellar Blade, a game celebrated for refining the essence of gooning into a playable medium.
Yeah, it's awesome.
People have straight up celebrated games having fan service and boycotted ones that don't, vice versa as well. Now when it comes to the actual culture war aspect about all this, I don't care too much to have a say on whatever side I find better. End of the day, if a game has no fan service or much of it, I'll find a way to survive. I don't care too much. I don't know why this is a hill many are willing to treat like fucking Vimy Ridge. I just want the creators of a game to fulfill what they set out to do fully within their own vision. If that involves take biggies, kill them dead. If that involves regular looking human beings, okay, pop off. I personally don't care to rant about why a game needs to have it or not, but at the same time, I have enough interest in this topic to make this entire video, which talks about fan service in games, so well, fuck, here we are. Now, since I'm mainly neutral about this war of fan service, that sounds stupid every single time I say it, I mainly want to focus down one thing I hear about it, then give more thoughts on how I feel about the culture war later. But what I hear a lot is that fan service is the surefire way to make money. Just give players an outfit consisting of 3 pieces of floss and then you can make millions. So before diving more into the thoughts behind the war of fan service, I want to see if that statement is in itself true. Now, to do this, I'm going to be looking at various gotcha games for 2 reasons. 1, you could easily make a correlation between a character who is Goon incarnate and what their banner's revenue was. And 2, gacha games are the only game I play nowadays. So I will answer this question utilizing revenue data like a mad scientist. Wait, why do I smell Dr. Pepper? So I am abundantly happy to announce that your boy was sponsored by Ricci.
Unfortunately, you got the Balder Asmon
City for their Steins Gate collab. Now, in case you do not know, Ricci City is a mahjong game in which you play mahjong. However, aside from the obvious, for the event there are many other things to do, such as the claw game where you can amass an army of Upas, doing daily missions to increase your rank, and even a full-blown story for the lab members, where they've been transported to Ricci City by a device Okabe was, more than likely, not handling responsibly. And in it, you see Okabe go full Chunibyo, Mayuri just happy to be there, and Makise wondering if there's enough Dr. Ricci to cope with all this. Now the lab members all get awakening arts and costumes. They have their base designs, which are a great recreation of how the designs were in the original visual novel. Then there's the awakening arts, which are straight up cooking, especially Okabe's, where it feels really similar to his Steins Gate Zero design. And all the characters got swimsuit costumes as well, which, gotta say, fitting towards the topic of this video. But something funny you can do is give the characters a nickname.
Fucking random.
They should not have given me this power. Though all the characters have many voice lines and emotes to unlock, and yes, I will be downloading all of these. Now aside from the lab members, Ricci City has a wide cast of characters, with absolutely stunning art for each of them.
Okay.
And that's without even looking at the various skins all the characters got.
Looks good, not gonna lie.
Let me love you with you real quick. I know Mahjong seems intimidating to get into cause, well, look at all this.
I ain't playing
but
that
Richu
shit.
City has tutorials for new players to understand how to approach Mahjong.
I'm
so
good,
it's not
bro.
like the game has thrown you to the wolves of Mahjong. I mean, after all,
That shit feels
I
random
was
as
able
fuck.
to learn
Hell
it, so
no.
I'm sure you'll be fine. So if you want to get the Steins Gate characters in the collab, feel free to use the download link in the description and pinned comment. And you can use the code to get some items in game. But I need to give a huge thanks to Richu City for sponsoring this video. Especially as I just love Steins Gate, so being able to do an ad for it, your boy's fangirling a little bit. Though with that being said, let's get back to the video. So if you have a topic like this, the answer everyone will say is yes, of course it will. I mean, if we're just looking at gacha games, there's way too many examples, but at the same time, let's answer one question first off. Does fan service mean a game will do well? God,
No.
Think about it like this, how many hentai games you see pulling in millions of copies sold?
Barely
Firstly,
any.
think about the amount of games that have done really well without any of that shit.
Well, the thing is, there's a huge difference between a hentai game and a normal game that has hentai-like tendencies. And the reason why that is because the moment you mark yourself as for 18 plus only, you're getting rid of the largest chunk of gamers, which is 13 to 17. Okay. So what these developers do is they have games that are appropriate for 13-year-olds that push the very boundaries of making it just barely not pornographic in order to access the largest demographic of players that they possibly can. Right? That way there's no limiters, there's still mainstream appeal, there's still a global audience, and they just make very risque, nearing porn, but you'll never get that nipple. You'll never get that pussy shot. You'll never get the sex option. You simply just won't.
So when people say it's needed, and if the Silent Hill remake doesn't make this character look like they're made of 1% flesh and 99% silicone, then it will fail, you're off on some good shit, give me a hit. So immediately it goes to show that it's not needed. However, does it make a game more money? Is it a surefire way to make cash and are developers stupid for not doing it? And I think the answer to that is a little complicated. So to get to the answer, let's look at some games to see if fan service could be correlated to success or money. And in doing so, it would answer a question on if this is something players want to see. Starting off with the Genshin Impact, does it beat the allegations of just appealing to horny teenagers without having much substance to stand on its own 2 feet? Best way to break this down is to go over how it succeeded and why some banners brought in more money than a country's GDP, and why others flopped. Yet still pulled in fucking 5 million. So as we all know, the game dropped and Frame 1, the first banner, pulled in 30 million USD, which is kinda insane, but when has Genshin surpassed that launch banner's revenue?
Many
It had a
times.
great start, but what brought it to the next level in terms of metrics? What has been the catalyst? To start
OP meta units and fan service.
checking this out, let's look at the banner revenue. Now this data is from Genshin Labs and is an estimate of the CN revenue, so I'm not saying this is 1,000,000% accurate. In truth, the revenue numbers are more
'Cause
than
it's
likely
not.
higher, but it gives us a good estimate. So only 8 banners have surpassed the launch limited banner. Yulan and Xiao, then Raiden solo banner.
It's crazy to me how this is probably less than 30% of their monthly revenue because we can't track money from every facet. So it's psychotic to think of how much money they're really making. It's scary.
Explains why everyone Doom posted about her being the equivalent to a pack
And all of the ones are just reruns.
of withering toothpicks if you don't have her at C2. Raiden and Kokomi's rerun, Nahida's first banner where she was paired with Yoimiya. Sorry to say, Yoimiya fans, Nahida probably carried that one. Ayaka's rerun, didn't know she had that big of a fan base. Ayaka and Shenhei, I feel like Ayaka carried that, but the two have really good synergy, so it makes sense it popped off. Raiden and Ayato, that's the third Raiden banner up here, and the one that has a gigantic gap at the top is Hu Tao and Yalan's dual banner.
Fucking
Hu
nuts.
Tao at the top, you'll love to see it. And I'm not surprised this is the top banner. This was Hu Tao's second rerun and it took over a year since her first rerun to drop. Pair that up with the fact
Which
she's
is
also pretty nice
crazy
at
'cause
C1.
she's, like,
Yolana's one of her
super
best
boring to
supports, also
play.
nice at C1 as well. Fucking Xing Cho was on the banner and oh, yeah. Both of
She
their
is
weapons are godlike.
ridiculously
I'm
fucking
not
cute,
surprised
though.
it's pulled in 46 million. Hell, I rolled on the banner to get my Hu Tao team comp. But looking at these banners, I've come to a realization. The realization is that I feel like most of them popped off because the units themselves are just good for gameplay.
She used to be fun? Oh,
Venti
yeah,
aside, as a
absolutely.
starting banner will just do well. That's how it is for most gachas. But it is important to note that people were high-key glazing him on the release of the game, saying that he was one of the best units. Granted, they also said that about Diluc, and well, time showed both of them motherfuckers were frauds. But all the listed units have a pretty dominant spot in the meta. Well, in some cases had, as newer units have power crept some of them, like Arlecchino being seen as better than Hu Tao. But for the many years before Alfredo was released, Hu Tao was seen as a meta-dominant unit. Though you
Sure.
can maybe exclude Raiden, as on her release there was a ton of Doom posting on if she was really good without C2.
She was busted
Granted,
as
we
fuck
now have
without it.
Hyperbloom teams for her, so even at C0 she is really damn good. But again, looking at when she launched, there was debate on her viability as a main DPS. I'd say she still was considered to be a good unit, but not at the levels of the other banners up there, like Hu Tao and Ayaka. And in
Nah,
terms
she was
of fan
busted.
service,
She's
I'ma
certainly
just say it,
matter.
I don't think many of these characters are. Of course, they all have fans. I mean, just look at the number of artworks that have been made for them. But I don't feel like any of them are the type of, well, Azur Lane, Girls Frontline 2, Nikke type of fan service. Don't ask me why I knew all of those games. All the characters up there are just largely lovable characters. Now, I'm not saying that all fans love them due to personality. Hell, I've seen Genshin fans.
Well, the other thing is that the more you love a character for their personality, the more you are to form parasocial tendencies with the PNG, the more likely you are to go to R34 and look up Hu Tao getting butt fucked by a miniature. It's almost a bonus to the game that they make these characters be so lovable while being very barely risque whatsoever, because it makes people enjoy who they are more, which makes them want to fuck them because they can't get the loot in game, which means, well, it keeps the game very relevant on social media, which also draws people back into the game. It's a self-feeding loop of relevancy and, well, gooning, to be honest.
But I'm saying that they're not exactly cardboard cutouts that look nice. The only two I'd say that don't have any lovable traits, and I will be crucified for saying this, but the two would be Raiden and Kokomi. Straight up, at first, Raiden's personality was only slightly more complex than a titty mouse pad. Kokomi isn't doing much better either.
I absolutely agree. Raiden, Shogun, and Kokomi's personality is pretty much 0%. The best, most developed character, personality-wise, is Furina. And it's not even close. Furina is the best character in all of Genshin Impact. And honestly, if they had her more relevant in the story, I would probably still be playing till today. Every single Furina chapter I played or watched, and I don't think they're ever going to make another character like her.
And Inazuma's story was easily the worst out of any post-launch region. It was a fairly low time for the game, so if I had to pick a unit that got good revenue just from fan service,
Ito
then
was
I'd
also
say them
dope.
two fall under that category. Raiden more so though, as on her release banner she had no character. Keep in mind, we didn't get her second character quest, the one that actually gave her character, until 5 months after her release. Pair that up with the fact that Inazuma's story wasn't well received and she wasn't being touted as an absolute must-pull top-tier unit unless she was at C2, then out of all the banners up there, I'd say hers was the most driven by fan service. I mean, just look at her alt. If I absolutely had to pick a banner that was carried by fan service, Raiden's
Yeah,
fits
you
the best.
want to be the
when you
sword.
take the fact that she wasn't being touted as a god in gameplay, and at the time her character was less complex than a Rubik's Cube, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that generating 33 million came from other huge aspects.
Yeah, it's fucking
Except
psychotic.
for her repeat banners. As with those, we saw how good she could be at C0 with a Hyperbloom team, and by then we had more story for her, so there was more reason to roll. Though if you're looking at the banner
Management of
profit, I'd say
characters
for
have no
Genshin,
depth to
the
them in
biggest
Genshin?
driving force for
Absolutely.
revenue is unit viability over fan service. And the banners that pulled in the least only support that. Yay Miko's third rerun and Zhao's fourth. Seriously. Yay Miko at the bottom. Fucking yay Miko. Homie,
Yeah.
someone who has never heard the words Genshin Impact in their life probably saw lewds of this motherfucker.
Absolutely.
Yet she's dead at the bottom.
True.
Now, repaid banners do have a trend of generating less, like Zhongli, despite all the controversy on
third
his
and fourth
initial
rerun,
release
man.
banner, pulled in less for his rerun, which was after he was proven to be a really strong unit. Now, the timing of EA's banner wasn't exactly the most ideal either, but even with that being the case, Jesus Christ, this pulled in less than Kaching's banner. And aside from that, Ye's release banner didn't exactly shatter expectations. Then there's Eula's second rerunning.
Yeah, but the other thing is that banner that you just showed is Yay Miko standalone, right? And that outsold Kazuha by nearly 50%. And Kazuha is one of the most meta viable units in the entire game. So I think it's very ignorant to act like Yay Miko didn't sell well. She sold amazing. She doubled the sales of Kokomi as well.
Klee's third rerun. Childay's rerun, I refuse to call him child, it sounds weird to me. Klee's rerun, Kokomi's first fucking banner. Damn, they did Genshin's take on Vaporeon fucking raw. And sure enough, looking at the bottom, all of these units are not meta. Kokomi aside, but once she dropped, damn near everyone treated getting her as the equivalent to taking a fucking sledgehammer and doing core workouts on your account. People say she's godlike now, possibly leading to her rerun with Raiden pulling in 33
Yeah, I
million,
heard that too.
but
Good
when
for her.
she dropped, she was slandered more than Amber. Though I do know that saying a unit in Genshin isn't meta.
First of all, Amber was not slandered. She was just so bad that whenever you talked about her, it seemed like slander because she's the fucking worst unit in the entire goddamn game. I mean, she has an AoE taunt that explodes after, and the units that are AoE taunted might not get hit by the explode. That is an inherent character kit flaw, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
meta is a little weird, as Genshin is in a perpetual loop of new character drops, people glaze them like Jesus resurrected, 2 weeks pass, they're now the shittiest thing in existence. Then over time they get power crept by another character, but due to how the elemental system works, the character can be used in any team comp and they'll find a way to be viable. However, with that being the case, I'd still say most of these units are not considered to be that strong. Zhongli and Kokomi aside, but I feel the circumstances around those times were different. But looking at the graph, the bottom of banner revenue correlates with the bottom of unit viability. And again, yes, all of these units are still perfectly usable. Hell, it's Genshin. A chewed up piece of tree bark is still viable, but they are not at the top of the meta is the point I'm making. So in Genshin, I think a unit being strong is what mainly drives the revenue of their banner. Fan service is a secondary thing, as surprising as that is to say. I mean, look at Klee. On release, touted as the best pyro DPS, 22 million. Helps, she was the second limited banner of the game, but I don't think that's the only reason it got 22 million. Then Hu Tao gets dropped, power creeps Klee. Klee has a rerun, 7 million. Now this logic would also explain why Ayaka's and Kokomi's rerun pulled in more than their first release.
It's crazy that Genshin was so basic that Klee was actually fucking busted upon release. I remember how to release a video called Klee's Not Bad, You're Fucking Bad because people couldn't play her correctly. And then I realized I never want to try hard playing a character ever again. And then I never did, and I C6'd everything. It was awesome.
As many people got to know their meta viability after their first drop. Also explain why Eula's second rerun didn't pull in that much revenue. It was set up to do really well. I mean, her first rerun and the second had damn near 2 years in between. So anyone who really wanted Eula over the course of a year and a half would have had to roll on that banner. And in terms of fan service, I'ma just say it. Eula has more cake than the fucking whole Cake Island arc from One Piece. Hell, she has almost as much art made for her as Ayaka has, so she's definitely got fans. Yet her rerun that was done a year and a half after her first release scored second lowest out of all of the banners. And I mean, yo, Klee ain't doing the banner any favors, but dog, that dual banner generated half of what her original banner did. And
sure, but also it's like a Eula second rerun and a Klee third rerun. Two characters that were at that point notoriously fucking horrific, right? Like fan service can only get you so far.
Obviously enough, many people think Eula is not a good character anymore. On her release, people said she was good, but as the meta progressed and physical just got ignored, she slowly faded into obscurity. All of this is why I think in Genshin, the meta generates more pulls than fan service.
Jesus.
Because if Eula's banner did that bad despite, you know, then I can't really say fan service is the biggest driving force. Shit, look at Dehya. Great story, great character, looks amazing, generated less than Ito.
Well, the problem that this guy's giving is acting like Eula is a heavy fan service character. Brother, whether you want to admit it or not, that character is fully fucking clothed. Okay? Now, I guarantee you, if Hoyoverse were to release a skin that put Eula or Ganyu or Raiden Shogun in a fucking bikini, that's fan service. A cute character, in my opinion, does not equate to fan service. A lewd character equates to fan service. My opinion.
On a dual banner. No favors were done with us knowing she'd be put on the standard banner after, but let's be real. The main reason she didn't generate that much is because she is trash gameplay-wise.
Like, if you want to see looted characters, talk about Zone Zero, brother.
For the gameplay. So in Genshin's case, I don't think you can say that the game survives by just fan service. Don't get it twisted. The game definitely relies on that, and the player base
no, I don't think anybody's saying that whatsoever.
Does go insane for realistically any character with a pulse. Maybe even some without a pulse. But I'd say despite a lot of Genshin fans being outspoken in some regards, the game doesn't inherently rely on fan service to sell characters. Now, the motherfuckers look good, but Genshin ain't at the level of Zenless Zone Zero. There's layers to this shit. Though even with the allegations against Genshin players, it seems like they will spend more for a unit that's meta viable. However, fan service can have a notable trend in unit sales. After all, Raiden, 33 million. Then you look at one of the best characters in the game, Neuvillette, 13 million. Now there is more to expand upon here, but I'd say in Genshin, unit viability does trump fan service for sales. However, fan service still has notable help. But now I'm gonna move to a game that I'd say really popped off due to fan service. That game being Blue Archive. And yes, I will be making a shit ton of Blue Archive jokes.
Well, oh, Jesus. All right. Well, this is just children at this point.
I cannot help myself, and I'm not sorry. But the Honeypot game dropped in Japan a smidge before Uma Musume. Now, in case you don't know, that gacha is popular as fuck in Japan. But that made it so Blue Archive was looking bleak. The game wasn't doing too well, Uma Musume popping off made most people just ignore Blue Archive, and at the time, the game itself wasn't the most solid. Then one event changed everything. They did something that would revitalize the game and make people fall in love with it. They released Bunny Girl units.
Yep, and I don't give a fuck what you say. This character is hot as fuck. Like, this character is absurd. This shit is wild, brother. Like, why the fuck they ain't doing this shit for Genshin? All right, they tried to assassinate the CEO. Listen, man, you cannot convince me that that ain't an adult. That bitch is fine as fuck.
I'm not even fucking around. This is what saved the game. This shit released and every single artist woke up like a damn sleeper agent and decided to draw these characters in their bunny girl outfits.
Yep.
So if you went on pics of Twitter, dog, anything that held the capacity to display an image, hell, your damn fax machine too, you saw these characters during that time.
Oh
hell,
yeah.
I saw their art before I even knew what in the hell a blue archive was. For a point of comparison, think about how popular Yelan is. Think of how many arts you have seen of her using the fucking bondage string. So on Pixiv, there are 7,000 artworks of Yelan. Now in terms of artworks, just about the Bunny Chaser event, not about the individual characters, just about that specific Bunny Girl event, there is almost 12,000. Meanwhile, Bootcamp has 18,000 artworks. That one event generated 2/3 of the art of one of Genshin's most popular characters.
Yep.
And hell, Asuna herself has 16,000 artworks. The popularity of the
Holy
Bunny Girls
shit.
gave Blue Archive its time in the sun. Since that event caused so many artists to draw about the game, they inadvertently promoted it, thus leading to more people knowing of it. And this was 2 months before the global release of the game, so it only served to help its global success. All the artwork was the freest and most effective way of advertising the game, but they did not gain overnight success from it. They went back and actually improved the game, just made it better after that initial burst of popularity. Fanservice lit the fire for the game, but just actually making a good product is what led millions to play it, and then shortly get put on the FBI's watch list. Now let's talk about a game that has always been known for fanservice and has arguably lived off of it. Fate Grand Order. Though I'd say that Fate Grand Order has largely survived off of two things, the story and characters, because God knows that gameplay is not pulling its weight.
So
Across
bad.
the character list, I'd say a ton of them do classify as fanservice, but not in the Coomer way. I mean, a fuck ton are in the Coomer way, but a lot of the fan service is mainly based around just bringing back beloved characters. For example, having Gilgamesh as a servant, beloved character. A ton of the
Yeah, I'm gonna be real, brother. If you want to act like FGO doesn't have fan service skins, you are just trolling, brother. We've all seen the Raikou Beach summer skin. That shit is borderline pornography. That's one of the few skins I can just jerk off to in-game rather than having to look that shit off offline. You are capping, brother.
The reason people want to get him is just because fans knew him from prior Fate stuff. Same idea goes with Arturia, Astolfo, Emiya, Kyrie, Frankenstein, Waver, Jean, the Samurai Remnant characters, Bazette, Tamamo, Mordred, Jack, Nero, anyone from Prilia, Ishtar, as she's basically just Rin with a foot fetish, and same principle with Erish, as she wasn't going to be rollable, but since everyone loved her in Babylonia, they dropped her banner a year after Babylonia's release. Point is, a shit ton of the cast is fanservice, as players already love these motherfuckers from prior Fate stuff. They were made rollable because the players wanted them, and that's not even counting how the beloved characters get 28 altars and a goddamn minifigurine set released along with them. But the case of Fate Grand Order is really unique. You got a game that can heavily sustain itself off of just fanservice because the IP is one of the strongest in Japan. Unless the game was literally unplayable, it was gonna do well.
Dude, I've tried to get into Fate, like, at least 5 times at this point, man. I just can't. That shit is so painful to get into. It is brutal. Like, I started Fate Zero. I really try to hear it out. That shit bores the fuck out of me, man. Like, I don't know if there's like a certain point where I can get into, but like, the fight scenes are nice. Don't get me wrong. The fight scenes are nice, but like, oh God, it's just so much. It's so much to take in it all the time. It's too much. The game or the anime? The anime. Why you started from zero? That's where I was told to start. Oh man, Fate Zero is so good. Maybe I'll give it another shot, but like, damn, bro, it is brutal how long it takes to cook. And this is coming from the guy who enjoys season 2 of Vinland Saga. It's just rough for me, man.
On release, its combat was ass. The sprites looked like bobbleheads and the story was... It existed is the best compliment I can give. It didn't really get good until Camelot, which was a year after its initial release. And even with the game being in easily its worst state, Gilgamesh's banner pulled in 1.8 million. And for a gacha game in 2017, that was really rare to see. So Fate Grand Order could have lived off of fanservice because the IP has done so much to make people fall in love with it. It's in a very unique spot that most other games just aren't. It pulled in 1.8 million for a game that most would agree was ass. However, with time FGO improved. The story got better, the gameplay was semi-salvaged, and there was a ton of updates. And because of that, generating 1.8 million for the game isn't really an outlier, it's kinda normal. And that's weird to say when most gachas die in less than 4 years, whilst this is being said 7 years after the Gilgamesh banner. But the point I'm making is that with time the game got much better, and because of that, average monthly revenue is able to dust the revenue off of a banner that had one of the most beloved servants in the entire series, paired up with 2 fan favorites as well. Now all of this is building to an overall conclusion, but let's focus down Snowbreak Containment Zone. It's a third-person shooter gacha that released about 9 months ago.
The game that revolutionized
that
it
shit
all.
dated precisely when I wrote this.
Remember guys, the less a game makes, the less the characters wear. If your game is failing, strip them motherfuckers down, man. Pop them titties out. Let's see them big ol' asses.
The style it went for in its character design was very tactical gear, basically what you would imagine waifus would wear after enlisting for the military. Now I haven't played too much of it, but from what I've seen it went for a more serious tone at release. And its launch revenue did really well. July brought in 1 million and August brought in 1.2 million, counting mobile revenue only, nothing from the PC port or the Steam version that...
Wait, what do you mean they censored Snowbreak? The latest update says they had to censor Snowbreak? What do you mean they're censoring it? Chinese government made them censor it. A little bit, forced to censor. CN cracked down on that. They did that, that's what the drama was about? You said you didn't care when it was sent to you, really? And some skins became unavailable. Wait, it's censored in China or it's censored in America? But you can edit a file to remove the censor. There are videos how to uncensor already. They told players how to uncensor, and you're allowed to do it. They left a way to uncensor in the game. Oh man. Devs made it easy to reverse the censor. So you're allowed to, and you're allowed to stream it uncensored. Okay, then who cares?
dropped a bit after launch. But in
Good
September, the game only brought in 300,000.
End of service in
Still
1
a
year.
ton, but definitely a step away from when it was first brought in. Then October brought in 160,000. A reason for the revenue taken is because the character banner in September was someone you could get on the standard banner, so there wasn't too much of a reason to roll, and October didn't have too much new content. And both of these months weren't really helped by the fact the PC version played much better than mobile, so some people definitely migrated to that. But in November, the mobile revenue doubled, so that begs the question, what the hell was done in November? And the answer is the Coomer patch. Swimsuits released for the cast. Tig Biggie's Full Moon's bunny suits. Do you think Azure Lane has it? The November update brought it. The game hard pivoted, intentional wording, from its original style of tactical stuff to have a ton of, well, a ton of nothing when you really break it down. And then in December, they released a character that,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah. Then in January for marketing, they released this, and yes, there is no added audio. It's ASMR with very heavily suspicious noises in the background. Long
Yeah,
story
she's
short, the
sucking a
game took
dick.
its identity as a tactical third-person shooter and evolved into being 3D Azure Lane. This is the most blatant Coomer patch I can think of, dog.
Yeah,
If
it's
he
awesome.
pre-stripped bare-ass naked and started busting it down
What's
midway
the
through a
problem?
sermon, I view that as
Wait,
less
why
of
are
a
we
change than
complaining?
what
It's
this
great.
game did. Lest we even talk about how during
fuck?
Valentine's, this is the mail you got from all the playable girls. And then the final mail you got was a message ripped from the beginning of a 40-page doujin with a fucking stamina potion attached to the mail. It
Great.
does feel like the developers made the game, saw the
Have
revenue drop,
the
and thought to
straight
themselves,
sex.
well, if we make our players hard, that shit's gotta be a nice beginning for a solid foundation. So the revenue kept at November's 300k, and in January it bounced to 500,000, which is because that's when Kyla Klein dropped. In case you do not know her, this is her design. Yeah. Wonder why she brought in 500,000. In case
Yeah.
of the Snowbreak Containment Zone
Oh
is the
my
most accurate
God!
example of a Coomer patch being deployed to save a game. The revenue
Holy
was taken,
fuck,
but the
I
fan
would've
service
pulled on her
motivated
if I
to
knew
make
she
it
was in
more
the game.
consistent. And within recent time, the CN revenue has jumped to 2.7 million.
Jesus!
Global at almost 1 million. Now, it is important to note that Sensor Tower's data is not exactly dead to rights. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be seen as fact. The actual truth is that these numbers are likely lower than what the games are actually bringing
Absolutely.
in. However,
I
still
would project that Sensor Tower is roughly 40% of their actual income.
even with that flaw in the data, this to be one of the more reliable sources we have of revenue tracking. And aside from that, the popularity of the game has been steadily increasing after this different focus for it was made. Now, this also came with, on the Steam page, having a mature rating for sexual content. Can't imagine why that's the case when this is the first ad that plays on the page. So yeah, Snowbreak Containment Zone is the most accurate example of a game dipping into fan service and saving itself from that. Granted, it's maybe not necessarily a dip into fan service and instead a bath into it, but that's neither here nor there. Though even with
Oh,
fan
bro,
service
it's
having
so
seemingly
good.
helped the game
Can
a
you
ton,
still get her
it's
or
still
no?
not pulling in huge numbers. If gooning was the only thing that drove the revenue, then why did Azure Lane triple this game's revenue in January? They're both fan service oriented games, so why the difference? Well, Azure Lane being out for years doesn't really help us. That means it has a way more dedicated audience, but
And also keep in mind that this game's available on Steam, which is going to heavily affect the numbers on the revenue report. whereas Azure Lane's not.
But another reason is, fan service cannot solely save a game. You see, after going through these examples, I've started to notice a pattern. Fan service boosts a game's popularity. Blue Archive got its time in the sun from it, now it's a huge game. Genshin had everyone on social media raving about the characters. Hell, some Genshin characters have been drawn so much to where one of them has more art made of them than an entire game. People then see the art, ask where the character is from, and then download the game. Both of those examples are fan service giving a game free advertisement.
Sure.
So fan service, within a large part, helped those games get popular.
Absolutely.
Fate Grand Order is an outlier, as due to its IP, everyone already knew it, so it's not that it gave the game its time in the sun, but more so that dropping characters people love just meant more money.
You're just wrong. 90% of people who discover Fate Grand Order is through the porn, and it's just undeniable. Okay, it's the same with Toho. This is just cap. It's not because the series is that beloved. It is because the porn is rampant and fucking everywhere. You can disagree. You're fucking wrong, man. You're absolutely wrong.
And in the case of Snowbreak Containment Zone, it dropped, was met with some popularity. Players started to leave due to a lack of content. They dropped some ASMR with tongue fucking .wav playing in the background, and a shit ton of people were like, real shit? And evidently got back into the game. Fanservice helped the games pop off, but you cannot survive with just fanservice. The most blatant evidence of that.
That's just your experience, and yeah, you saying it's just the anime is just your experience. So you can't just say that's just your experience. Bro, now obviously there's no way to prove this, but it's obviously to each their own. Assuredly, the porn of FGO has garnered so much attention, it's insane. Everyone in chat is saying it's the anime. No, they're not. Poll? What the fuck's a poll gonna solve? All that does is get the sample size from my chat. Chat, we all know the game sucks ass. You know what doesn't suck ass? The porn. It's everywhere. Just poll it? Nah, fuck no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. FGO is such a shit game. People make a forum about how they felt asleep playing it. That's insane. Paul? Only like 300 people answer polls. Yeah, nobody uses the polls anyways. Ban Tectone for not polling. Okay, I'll do a better research. Rule 34. Fate series. 101,000 different pieces of porn. Genshin Impact. 148,000. This means that Fate Grand Order only has 33% less porn than Genshin Impact from a game a fraction of the size. Genshin Impact, a game carried by the fan service of their porn creators. They're discovered by porn, guys. We all know it. Absolutely, we all know it.
That is realistically any cash grab gacha game that gets released for an anime. To pick one out, My Hero Academia, the strongest hero. From a beloved manga, wow, that shit really dated when this fucking script was made. Okay, holy shit. From a manga with a McDonald's employee as a protagonist to, from what I've heard about it, a game so dog shit that everyone stopped caring about it.
Sure, nice proof. Okay, all right, then go ahead and show me your proof then, big man. Go ahead. Show us your big proof that you have. Yeah, nice proof, dude. Go ahead. Oh, wait, you fucking can't. The only thing that you can do is make a well-educated guess. Now, let me go ahead and further continue on why I'm right about this and you're wrong. Fate series watched. But yet, how many viewers does Fate have? There we go, great. The first 6 episodes of the Fate Winx thing was viewed by 57 million subscribers in 2022, okay? So then we take the fact that there's 110,000 different versions of porn for Fate, okay? So let's take this and let's crunch the numbers here. So 110,000 divided by 56 million. Hold up. 56 million divided by 110,000. So that means that each piece of artwork wants to average around 509 viewers to depend on where more viewers are coming from. The actual anime series itself or the artwork that it is made. Use Google Trends maybe. Yeah, let me Google trend. Fate Grand Order porn. Fate Grand Order anime. And that will show us the raw graphical data. The only thing that you can understand here is there's 56 million viewers of Fate, okay? 56 million. That's a lot of people, okay? There's 110,000 different pieces of pornography for Fate just on rule34.com that are properly labeled. Now, you have to make the assumption on what do you think people watched more of? This anime or have seen the art? It depends on whether you think or don't think that a piece of art, in average, can garner more than 500 views per piece of art or not. Me, personally, I think that's very plausible. If each piece of art needed to average 10,000, then no, I don't think that's possible. But a merely average of 500 views per piece of smut, that's really not that hard to attain. That is why I have been led to assume that. You can assume whatever you want to, but the reality is either we're both right or we're both wrong. You can choose one. However, there obviously is no direct proof of what has been seen more, the anime or the porn. It's your choice. That's the reason why I believed what I believed.
In terms of fan service, you had a fairly dedicated, tested with.
I mean, not everyone who viewed Fate looked at the porn. And in the same note, just to make it very clear, not everyone who looked at Fate porn looked at the anime. Case in point, me. I watched the Fate porn for years before I even knew that it was an anime. So it's really to each their own.
In recent times, fan base, the fucking My Hero Academia fan base, them motherfuckers would literally storm Normandy for the sake of their characters and ships. Yet the game was so utter ass to where no one gave a damn about it. Then for Gunnar fan service, look at the bottom of Sensor Tower's stats. That is a spreadsheet of dying gotchas, and if you look at most of them, they got the Coomer designs, yet those are not enough to save it. Then take Devil May Cry, Peak of Combat. One of the most beloved IPs, characters in it are amazing, game's ass, guess what? It's dying. Unless you are at the level of Fate, fan service on its own will never save a game. It will mainly serve to make it more popular. As, unsurprisingly, it's something people want to see. Fan service gets people into the door. An actual solid game makes people care about it. Hell, look at Nier Automata. There are more polygons in 2B's ass than there are in the entirety of Ocarina of Time. When this game dropped, everyone was talking about 2B, 7 years after the game's release, and people are still talking about her. But Nier Automata didn't sell well just because of 2B's ass. It popped off because the game on its own was amazing. Meanwhile, look at Nier, the PlayStation 3 version of it. Same exact case as Nier Automata. Story was amazing, some even say better than Automata, and it has kinda damn near same vibes as 2B. But the game didn't do that well. Reason being, the PlayStation 3 version has combat that felt like if you took Dark Souls 2 dogshit gameplay and flayed it in the 9th layer of hell. Which was due to the fact that Square Enix didn't give Yoko Taro any budget for his works, which is why Drakengard 3 ran like a hellhound with every known drug injected into it, but I digress. Both games got fan service and an amazing story, but one is a much more polished experience and an all-around better game. So it was able to do better as the product, aside from fan service, was just good. And sure enough, the Nier remake sold over 1 million copies. Incredibly similar to the PlayStation 3 version, but it did better as the overall experience of the game was leagues above the PlayStation 3 version. So yeah. Fan service exists as a good advertisement for games. Same shit's the case with Stellar Blade. I knew nothing about that game, but because of people going gorillas bananas about the fan service, I now know a shit ton about it.
Oh yeah.
All they did was make jiggle physics, then the gooners and anti-gooners advertised the game to every single living organism with the controversies of it.
And that was
what I've
good
heard, the game
shit.
itself seems damn good, so I think it's gonna be a hit when it releases. And guess fucking what? I wrote the script months ago, but didn't make the video till now because my time management is dog shit, but who was right? Me in the past, and the 1 million plus copies shipped up sold of Stellar Blade. It's another case where people know of something due to what everyone's talking about, but the actual quality of the game is what makes them want to play it. So that's what I think about fan service in a game. Unless your IP is as strong as something like Fate, fan service on its own cannot save a game. We've seen many cash grab dogshit games be made to profit on something's popularity. Those have a track record of failing. We've seen games come out and the only saving grace of them is, oh, the characters are hot. We've seen those fail over and over. But when you make a product that is actually good, unsurprisingly, people want to play it. From their fan service, either it be hot characters or cameos that people love, serves as an effective advertisement. Remember when Mortal Kombat brought an Omni-Man and Homelander as playable characters? Fans loved it, everyone was talking about it, but if that game on its own was hot ass, nobody would have cared. So that's my thought when it comes to people saying fan service is needed or that it's a cheap way to get money. Now we come to the pseudo-cultural aspect about all this.
I mean, I don't think anybody's saying fan service is needed. However, in a gacha game, if you do pivot and make luge skins, you will get short-term benefits. Absolutely. And the short-term benefits being monetary can also be used to develop your game in order to improve it with funds you may not necessarily have had previously. And the other thing is adding 2 nice collabs to a shit game isn't going to save it. Well, I don't think anybody has ever thought, oh yeah, man, if they add fucking Omni-Man into Tetris, it's going to quadruple the income of the game. It's like, well, no, it's just not fucking necessary. I don't think that's an argument that anybody is actually having.
Where some people will love a game or hate it due to fan service.
Like, this
and
video
honestly,
isn't really saying
I
anything
think
that
feeling
anybody
either way
has
is incredibly fair. If you don't want to play a game, simply just don't. If you think the title of a game is stupid, that's a valid reason to not play it. End of the day, it's your time. You can choose however you want to spend it. However, when it comes to criticism, that's when the critiques need to be more valid. And then that's when people split hairs. Now, to take any stance of, I want fan service in a game or I don't want it, I don't care too much. As my perspective is, I want the creators of something to fully and faithfully achieve their vision. That is frame one, what I want out of art. If you would call games art, but I feel so most people already do. I just want the creators to make what they want to make. Now, that doesn't mean I'll fully agree with the final product. After all, if the developers adhere to their vision and made a pile of dog shit, I'm not playing a pile of dog shit. I just want that passion to be what drives the cart. The end destination I may not like, but I prefer that to be the driving force of creation. So when it comes to if games should or shouldn't have fan service, my answer is, I just want the creators to do what they are passionate about. And from there, my like of the game will be judged by the actual product. It's like, you got Nikke, a game of fan service. I'm sure I'll find a way to survive, I don't really care about it. Then you got this shit-ass mobile game I'm regretting playing for a video I might make in the future, fucking Dream Girlfriend. In that dog shit, you literally make a waifu and train them to become more human, I suppose? And you gacha for clothes and shit for the character to wear. And deadass, that feels like the most incel-ass game I've ever played, dog, I won't even hold you. And that's what I mean when I say in this pseudo-culture war, I don't care to take a specific side, as I find dislike towards the game will just depend on the contents of it. Not for the category of fan service to non-fan service. So that's my thoughts when it comes to the pseudo-culture war of fan.
Listen, man, I think fan service is great when it's done authentically and it doesn't feel forced. Now, you gotta understand, I'm not a guy who needs fan service. Listen, man, I played Cookie Run Kingdom for 8 fucking months, and that game was great. You think I was jerking off to cookies? Absolutely fucking not. But fan service is done well, and I do believe that fan service definitely has the ability to save a game. Short-term profits can be used to develop long-term improvements. And I do think that if a game is failing, they should turn to fan service. Absolutely, because sex sells, we all fucking know it. Okay, there's a reason why none of the characters look like me. There is no character put into the game that's fat and bald. You wanna know why? Because those are the fucking enemies. Lie meter, you jerked off to some of the cookies? No, I fucking didn't. Okay, I didn't. They make these characters pretty intentionally because it makes the players excited. And it makes the character or the players more excited to be these characters. They can self-insert and they can see the way that these other girls are reacting to that handsome character, and they can feel something they've never felt before, which is attractive. Okay, but fan service can definitely save a game, and it's definitely good for a game when it's done authentically, and it's even better when it's done to characters that don't look like children.